So here you've now finished the preparation, you've done your patching of cracks, your divots, you've done your sealant around the edges. I see you're setting up now to do the roll coat. So garage granite, you're typically doing 4 square metres a litre for a base coat, but it can use more depending on how you're feeling on the job. Is that how you're seeing it?
Yes, that's right. So the first step here, each slab is different. Some slabs will use a lot more and never less. So we're looking at 250 microns per square metre is the base coat coverage. So the way I work, I mix up 1.5 litres or 1 litre, and we do a cut around the outside first, and then I've got my main, if I'm doing it on my own, in the winter I'll mix up a full 6 litre mix of epoxy and get ready to squeegee that out. So if it's in the middle of summer and I'm on my own, I don't make the mix as big, because I find that it tends to get a little bit stiff towards the end of it. It's nicer to work with a fresh mix. And different epoxies are different. So this one here I find is really good. It holds well and we don't have any problems. The other thing that I'm watching out for is once I've cut around the outside, the exterior perimeter of the garage is where it tends to bleed in, and if you don't put enough on, it becomes dry and the flake won't stick. So the whole key of what we're trying to do here is to get an even coat of epoxy across the whole floor, and of enough volume that the flakes will bond into that epoxy, and at the same time absorb into areas that may be a little more porous than others. So it's a lot easier perhaps when there's 2 on the job. You can move a lot faster, and the time is a lot quicker.
Yep.
But in saying that, it's very easy to do a double garage on your own.
Okay, you just mentioned porosity there. This slab seems pretty good as far as porosity, but if you had a slab that was rain affected and was particularly porous,
correct,
how would you approach that differently to how you're doing this slab?
It's really to do with volume of epoxy. I have used, in the past, I've used prime coats where we'll actually prime it, and if it's so porous that we need to prime it and come back the next day, then that will be the approach we take. But I very seldom do that now because of this epoxy. We just tend to put on a thicker coat of epoxy, and a proportion of that will bleed into the porous slab. So really it's just ensuring that you've got that 250 odd micron of epoxy sitting on top of the slab. If it is a porous one, then it may mean rolling it out, waiting for 5 or 10 minutes, and then maybe mixing up a little bit more and just topping up areas that have it'll tell you where it needs more.
It'll show it.
It'll show up, and we just roll out and back roll it, let it sit.
Yep.
And once it sort of stabilises, then we can cast our flake.
Yeah, just on that flake, if you're talking about 250 microns or even 300 microns, if you're allowing for more porosity, then you're also budgeting, what, 10 square metres per 5 kilo box, or are you allowing more than that, or how does that sort of come into?
When I'm casting flake, I always have, I budget on 10 square metres per 5 kg box. Different manufacturers make different size boxes of flake, and it all becomes a bit confusing, but I budget on 10 square metres per box of flake, and that is, I find that's always enough. We often have some left over, or it allows us to really just do a full flood of flake on the floor.
Yep.
And you reap that reward the next day when you come to seal it. because it just looks so even.
So you've got your even coverage, and you know that even if it was a thicker section, you don't have any banding going on or anything
Correct,
like
yeah.
that.
I never get banding. Banding, and it's all to do with making sure that we roll out the epoxy evenly across the whole floor. And so we'll start with a cross roll, a double roll, get it out over the whole floor, and then we do a finish roll before we cast the flake.
Very good. And then tomorrow, when you come back, you actually recover a portion of the flake as well?
We'll recover a portion of the flake. I don't like to use that in the next job. It's more there as a backup for a top-up if we're running a bit short, because each time we handle it, it tends to break up a little bit and pieces get a bit smaller. And I'm finding that with this system that we're using, we don't get a lot of recovery.
Okay.
It's actually builds itself into the floor.
Excellent. Good points.
Yeah.
Let's see how this goes.
We will into it.